What's going on, golf fans? It's your boy GS Luke here with our round 2 showdown stream for the US Open. Gonna get you guys ready for all of your Friday exposure with a look at the weather report, some strategy for tomorrow's slate, as well as any questions or player deep dives that you've got for me in the chat, as well as building a lineup or two together over there on DraftKings to go ahead and tie it all together. But hopefully Thursday is treating everyone nicely. We got to see some carnage at Oakmont, which is always what we come to expect. And I would say it played even harder than what I was expecting, which as a golf purist, somebody that loves to see these players struggle at times, that was obviously a really good thing out there. Of course, a lot of fun to watch those guys struggle a bit, and super stoked for what the rest of this weekend has for us in store. So go ahead, hit me up with any of those player deep dives that you got, and let's have ourselves a Friday for this event. And it was fun out there. It was really hot, I'd say. I'm from South Florida, so I'm usually used to some heat, but I don't know whether it was the lack of cloud cover or whatever. It was a pretty demanding out there, a lot hotter than what I was expecting, and at least I know how to pace myself, right? We're from South Florida, definitely not going to make us wilt or anything, but let's keep this thing going. So we got Alan down there, welcome on in. Also Go Collect early to the stream. I am sure ready for some carnage myself, Sean, so love to see that you're looking forward to it too. You got James down there. Let's go Rasmus Niergaard. He is an absolute stud. He had himself a day today, and look at that. 49ers quarterback Alex Smith in the chat once again. Obviously just kidding there, but yeah, awesome day to watch some golf. So like I said, any questions that you have throughout this live stream, feel free to go ahead and let me know. If you don't have any, still say hi to the live chat, right? Don't be shy to go ahead and do so, and smash that like button if you guys haven't already as well. But the golf course today, kind of surprisingly, especially when I first got off the golf course, it was surprising for me to see that the PM played easier. And the reason I'd say that is the winds were definitely higher in the afternoon. As somebody that was there for most of the day, I can tell you that in the PM hours, it was gusting a lot more, and it looked like it was getting firmer and faster. So when I see that the PM played almost like 0.8, 0.9 shots easier than what we had in the morning, that really surprises me. And what that either tells me is that first off, the more talented players were in the PM wave, or it tells me that the ball traveling further and that firmness might have actually been advantageous for those players that were going off later. And I don't have the exact answer to that. We only have one round of data to work with. But what I would say is that I don't think that the PM guys are automatically going to have the advantage for tomorrow, because it could have been talent gap that gave the guys that 0.8, 0.9 shot advantage. Or it could have been a factor, the course drying out throughout the day that isn't going to be there tomorrow. And the reason I point that out is that tomorrow afternoon, we have rainstorms predicted in Pittsburgh. So if you guys know anything about me showing up to tour events, typically we get some sort of rain at some point. And though you don't see it in this HRRR model, around 4 or 5 p.m., they're expecting some rain to come through. So you can see they're calling for clouds tomorrow as opposed to a fully sunny day. So for yours truly, I'm going to really be happy for that, as it's not going to be nearly as hot or as exhausting out there on the golf course. But that edge with the golf course drying up and giving those players more rollout might not be the same thing tomorrow. And that's not to say that the morning guys are really going to get that advantage, right? That wouldn't really be the case if that happened. It's just that tomorrow, maybe it's a little bit flatter when it comes to the scoring versus the morning and the afternoon. So I would say that a lot of the field probably is going to play some PM starters. I don't think that that's a mistake. If you want to go off of the round one data, I couldn't blame you. I do that a lot of times when it comes to my exposure, but the only reason I'm slightly more hesitant about that is just because the winds kicked up. Greens looked a little bit firmer and faster. Something tells me that there's a chance that it was due to the field strength in the PM wave, which is really hard to calculate, by the way. It's really hard to really tell if that's the case unless it's blatantly obvious, like it is like at the Tour Championship, for example, when all the best players are towards the top. It isn't as drastic at a major championship like this. So that's why I'm a little bit hesitant on that. But if you want to play some PM wave starters, at least based on what we saw for today, that would be the move based on that data. Other thing we'll go through a few of the other models before we bring up the shots gained metrics. So HRDPS does have that little bit of a storm coming through around 4 or 5 p.m., but wind gust, sustained winds are pretty constant throughout the day. And I guess that's worth noting with this HRRR. I know I didn't mention that much with the forecast, but it's pretty much the exact same as today. Not that much wind to contend with. It's going to be almost the exact same throughout the entire round. And the wind gusts, though they look a little bit higher in the PM wave, so this is the HRRR that I have up now. You can see closer to like 10 miles an hour in the afternoon. That's the same exact scenario that we had for round number 1. So synopsis on the weather, maybe a slight lean towards the PM wave if you're looking at this round 1 data. But I'm just going to add that asterisk to it just because of what I encountered on the golf course today. I'm not sure if it's a for sure edge out there for round number 2. So I'm personally going to be playing a lot of my lineups pretty straight up, not really factoring in the weather as much. I'll probably have at least some lineups that do stack that PM side just in case it is almost a one-shot advantage like what you had for today, but I wouldn't count on it for some of your higher dollar exposure. The other thing we're going to touch on would be building a player pool for tomorrow, and there's a few different ways you can find guys to use in your lineups. And the first way would be to use the shots gained metrics to go through the round 1 stats, try and kind of learn something about players and how they're trending in the round number 2. You can look at some round 2 historical stuff. That's what the SHIPIT Nation Stone is great for. By the way, check out the SHIPIT Nation site if you guys haven't already for all of that data for round 2. Probably not up there yet as the round hasn't ended, but after the round ends, keep an eye for that going up live on the site over there. Or you can look at shots gained metrics, as I'm mentioning. We're going to talk about exactly what you can look for in the shots gained to find your plays here. High upside players, you can look for players to make a whole lot of birdies. That's a good idea for rounds 2 and 3 showdown. Round 2 and 3 showdown, by the way, if maybe you're new to this kind of format, you don't have placement points in play. So like what you have for main slate, like we have for round 4 showdown, where your placement point positions actually matters. It's not the case for rounds 2 and 3. So it's more so trying to find lower owned players that we can mix in to get different to the rest of the field. So whether it's the shots gained metrics, some round 2 historical, or high upside players, those are the best ways to build your player pool for tomorrow. And what we're really going to focus on here will be the shots gained metrics aspect, trying to find some diamonds in the rough based on how they played for today. But if you want to look at the birdie or better list, I think that's a great resource to use for your showdown process. The stone, of course, for that round 2 historical. And another thing I normally incorporate too would be course history players. We do have course history at Oakmont. It's just not as prevalent given we haven't played here since 2016. Plenty of guys where this is the first time they're taking on Oakmont Country Club. But if you want to find a low-owned DJ, for example, who I haven't completely done my projections yet, but I'm sure he's going to be sub 5% ownership in the projections I post on my Patreon page later on, because he played terribly today, right? He shot well over par. Not a lot of people are going to want to get to that sort of player. If I'm going to take a shot on a dark on somebody to bounce back after a rough Thursday, high upside players are usually the top of my list for that. And then also some of the course history players, guys that have played well around this golf course in the past. Shane Lowry, I think, would be another example of that, right? Really struggled in round number 1. I think if you're trying to find a bounce back candidate, if the shots gained metrics aren't there on a player, find some high upside players or find those course history players too. But like I said, what we're really going to focus on here for this live stream will be the shots gained metrics aspect. So let's go ahead and bring up the top ball strikers from round number 1. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and refresh this so that we have the exact up-to-date stats. We'll sort it by ball striking, and we'll try and find you some diamonds in the rough for tomorrow. And unfortunately, these guys towards the very top aren't going to be diamonds in the rough. Players that are in the top 5, top 10 of the ball striking stats are almost always going to get a little bit of extra steam when it comes to your showdown lineups, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be unusable at that sort of ownership. So you're going to see me taking a lot of these top level ball strikers, but my favorites, and if you've been following the content here on the SHIPIT Nation YouTube for a while, you'll know this, are guys that are a little bit further down the board. So maybe not quite in that top 5, top 10 of the ball striking stats, perhaps top 10 to 20, maybe even 20 to 30 on that list. Still hitting the ball well, right? Still well above average, especially before the cut line in that category, but aren't going to be getting as much steam as some of the other peers around them. So we'll talk about that here in a second. So where we leave off, he said, "What's up, Luke?" That's right, we already went through that, but welcome on in, Alex, again. Michael says, "Hey, Luke, Lowry was bad as that score." I didn't follow him, Michael, so I'm not sure if he was as bad as the score would indicate. I did watch some of his round on the broadcast, though, and I mean, he really struggled on that last nine. He had the hole-out eagle. That was, of course, a bright spot for him, but those last 4 or 5 holes where he shot like 4 or 5 over, it's a tough scene. But this is a golf course where even your best players are going to get tripped up a bit. You saw that with Scotty Scheffler today. He obviously didn't have his fastball. I wouldn't hold it against him too much. It's only an 18-hole sample size, only 1/4 of the NFL Showdown slate. If you want to make that little parallel, don't kill him yet, right? Don't completely write him off. Shane Lowry poised for a bounce back. We can look at the stats. I think that would probably give us the best idea of whether there's a chance for the bounce back. There's always the or he could factor. And when we look at the stats from today and he lost over 4 strokes with the putter, there's always a chance that he can bounce back the next day because, if this was 4 or 5 shots lost with the off the tee or approach play, I would be a lot more worried about it. And by the way, I skipped the SparkNotes version of why we're looking at the ball striking stats before. The reason why that would be such a big red flag if he was losing 4 or 5 strokes in those categories is that this is the most consistent part of golf. How you're actually swinging the golf club is something that you can take from day to day, event to event on the PGA Tour. And if you're losing a bunch of strokes off the tee and approach, like you see in these 2 categories here, it's really hard to get over. But like you can see here with Shane Lowry, to answer your question, that was not the case. In fact, he gained strokes ball striking for round number 1 and lost over 5.5 strokes between the short game categories. So poised is probably a good word. I think the bounce back candidate is for sure there. 19 of 155 players, even or below. Yeah, man, tough golf course. One of a kind, really. You're not going to see this at any other major. Even the Masters, you're going to see more people under par. What's going on, Antonio? Who surprised me and played good and vice versa? So JJ Spawn's the obvious answer. He surprised me with how well he played. I would say Thurston Lawrence, but that actually didn't surprise me that much. I know a lot of you out there are like, how the hell didn't Thurston Lawrence surprise you at -3? Well, I played him this week in my lineup. So if you were part of my Patreon page, you would have seen that. And that's probably why a lot of you watching this probably weren't surprised about Thurston Lawrence playing well this week. But he plays well at hard golf courses. So I was surprised by JJ Spawn. I guess kind of surprised by Lawrence. I mean, yeah, he's played terribly this year. So I guess I was a little surprised that he was near the first round leader. But players that kind of suck today that surprised me, so to go down towards the bottom end of the board, I mean, the pure bottom are guys that are absolute slapdicks. But like a Rory, I mean, he started well. He was -2 at one point, and then he really fell apart. The Lowry +8, +9, I wasn't expecting to see that either. Probably those are the main ones, I would say. Those 3 or 4 that we've gone through were probably the most surprising. And a lot of guys sucked, though. Like you can see, Matsuyama, Fleetwood shot +4, Clark shot +4. Clark at one point was like -3, so quite a fall off from him at the top end of the board, and then ending up at T63. I don't know. We shouldn't be surprised, though. It's Oakmont Country Club, and it's going to be an absolute beast. Really got to think Bryson figures it out tomorrow. I would think so, man. He had a lot of birdie putts today. I wasn't at the golf course quite yet when he was finishing his round, but it was a lot of like 10 to 15 footers on the broadcast that he wasn't able to get to drop. And they are tough greens. You're not going to make a whole lot of putts around Oakmont. But Jordan Spieth, I mean, I saw him a little bit. He was making some 10 to 15 footers. And Bryson is arguably an even better putter than what you have with Jordan Spieth. So if you can get that going, Sean, I like his chances. And I didn't look at the shots gained metrics yet. I was assuming it was going to be all ball striking, and my assumption was right. I didn't see these beforehand, but you can see he lost about 2.5 strokes short game, but gained over 4 strokes with the ball striking. So I think so, man. Tomorrow seems like a pretty good bounce back spot. If a player is +4, how optimistic am I about them seeing the weekend? Sorry, that was a little bit of a tongue twister for me. I would say that they're just fine. I mean, they're 1-2 strokes out of the current cut line. If they can shoot something like +1, +2 tomorrow, that's likely going to be enough to make it. So I would say that I'm okay with guys at +4. Definitely not feeling great about them. I mean, rather have them closer to even par or better than that. But I wouldn't write them off quite yet, Fred. Like especially a Fleetwood that you have in parentheses there. He could definitely still make the weekend at this point. He said Ludwig going to be chalky at +2. I don't think so. I think that he'll get some play because of how many birdies he made today. I know the scorecard +2 isn't that special, but he did have one of the highest birdie marks of anyone in the field. I do think there's a chance that he gets some play, but I wouldn't say that he'll be chalky for tomorrow. Again, I don't have my ownership projections done quite yet. They will be done for my Patreon members a little bit later on tonight. But if I had to give you like a ballpark idea, like a little bit over 10% is probably where he comes in. So if you play him in 25%, you can get that kind of leverage. By the way, guys, if you haven't already smashed that like button, go ahead and do so. Better to have you late than never, Ross. Welcome on in. He said, hope I had a great day at the course. I did. I appreciate the kind words. He said, Reed triple bogey on the last was impressive as the Albatross. And speaking of guys, I know I didn't mention the Albatross. I got to see that one in person today. It's the second Albatross that I've seen in person before. So it doesn't quite hit the same as the first one that you see. But the thing I liked about the Patrick Reed one is that no one really knew it happened. I actually thought it was a hole out for eagle when I first saw it. That had to be the most classical part about it. In fact, Patrick Reed didn't know that the ball went in until one of his playing partners actually signaled to him that the ball was in the hole. It was a hoot out there today, and I didn't see that triple on the last, but yeah, it counts for the same, right? Albatross going to be super rare. Triple bogeys actually not that rare on the PGA Tour, but unfortunately they hit the scorecard the same way. He said, legend Luke, I appreciate you, Michael. Welcome on in, my dude. And we should be calling you the legend, Michael. How many 100K takedowns do you have this year already? I mean, it's just, like I said, you should be giving us the advice, not even me out here, man. What's going on, Jason? Let's have ourselves a great round 2. Amen to that. Any Griot love for tomorrow? Seems like he was close to having a nice day. Ball striking stats heading in were some of the best of players towards the bottom end of the board, and he checked that box today. Now, the short game was there. He actually gained strokes with the putter, which isn't something you can always depend on with a Griot, but he was coming into the week as one of the best players down low off the tee and on approach, and he held that up for round number 1. So you'd have to give him like a 6.5, a 7 out of 10 with the stat profile, if not even slightly better than that. So I haven't built my player pool quite yet. I have to look at the ownership on Griot before I make that decision. The one thing to note is that because he played well today, had one of the better rounds on the course, that he is going to be, I don't want to say chalk because he's towards the bottom end of the board, but definitely a lot chalkier than some of the other guys around him, I would say. Thoughts on DeChambeau and Aubert for round 2? You said rain might come in during the PM. Yeah, that's kind of my concern with like going all in on that PM edge. That's personally why I'm probably going to play it a little bit more straight up. I'm okay with the PM guys though. Like even if that rain does come through, it's not supposed to come through till like 5 or 6, which would be at least halfway through all those kind of players' rounds. So I don't think it's like this massive factor that should scare you off of that side of things. DeChambeau, the stats looked really good on him. Aubert, let's actually just double check on the exact stat profile. Ball striking looks pretty good there too. Gained 2 on approach, gained 1.6 when it came to the driving. I'm okay with both of those two for sure. Said it all week that Brooks' only chance are at courses with the winners only a few under par. I agree with you on that, Blake. He is a grinder. He's got that tough mindset. I played him in a bunch of lineups this week, so pretty cool to see that he's played so well so far. He said, Thirsty Lawrence here to drink everyone's Scotty tears, blowing everyone's minds. Yeah, man, blowing everyone's mind but me. I got to say, I'm a big Thirsty Lawrence guy, so it's not just like out of nowhere that I played him this week. He was my favorite DP World Tour player before he came overseas, and I remember Royal Troon. I mean, Royal Troon was in Brute last year, one of the hardest majors that we've seen in a while. So for me, it was kind of a no-brainer, right? If he played well at Royal Troon, he could certainly play well at this course. But we'll see if he can keep it up, man. To say that he's had a disappointing 2025 would be an understatement. I think his made cut rate is lower than 25%. So he's more than likely going to blow up. I mean, let's be honest. He's more than likely going to finish outside the top 25. That's the reality with my guy, T-Law. Doesn't matter, though, because McCarty went plus 13. Yeah, I kind of called that yesterday, Blake, so I'm not sure if you were in the chat or not, but he did not look happy on the golf course. And I didn't see him on the course today, but I'm sure he wasn't very happy with that kind of score either. Is there any hope for Johnny Vegas to have a day? So honestly, I have no idea where he ended up, and I didn't see him on the course at all. So we'll default to the shots gained metrics. And for sure, man, he's got a really good chance to bounce back, because just like a few of those other players that we've already pointed out, gained 2 strokes off the tee, 1.8 strokes on approach, for sure could figure that thing out. What are the scoreable holes here? Just the par 5s. So I'll go through a few of them, Brandon. 2 and 17 are potentially drivable par 4s. Depending on wind direction, both of those can be very scoreable. Even if they're not on a great wind direction, they're going to be on the top 5 or 6 easiest holes most slates. Today, 2 was actually kind of hard, but that was an outlier because of that pin location. So those two, the 2 par 5s, are also scoreable holes. And then you've got a few sub 400-yard par 4s. So I'm not exactly sure what number they are, but I think one of them was 5. One of them is like 14 or something like that. New course for me, at least when seeing in the championship setup. I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head, but those shorter par 4s are also pretty scoreable too. But there's not many, man. There's like maybe 5, 6 out of the 18 where you can make a birdie on them realistically. You're all in on JT. He's a high upside player. I've seen much worse plays before, so best of luck there, Wayne. You got 6th in Showdown today. Pretty decent ROI. I know you're used to finishing in 1st or 2nd though, Brian. So let's get you back in 1st or 2nd tomorrow. You got You got part of that 0.04% today. I'm guessing that's on T-Law. Dude, cheers to that, man. That was a great play. Like, I had a reason to get there because I like the guy, but if you played him because of ownership, that's an even better play. Sepp was birdie free. We're drinking the Sepp tears right now, and I had a curious chatter yesterday that was giving me some crap about the Sepp fade. Well, I guess we'll see how he feels at this point after he shot like +6, +7 today, huh? Let's go to Velo. Velo hit a bunch of fairways, which I only know because I was going through some of the stats before for props. But off the tee, he was able to gain 2 strokes with him hitting 12 of the 14 fairways. He was a little short game dependent, though, gaining almost 3 strokes around the green. You'd have to think if he gained 3 strokes around the green that it was probably a chip in or 2 that ended up causing that. I would stay away from it. I mean, it is Kevin Velo, of course, that we're dealing with there. Cut it +5. Let's look at what Data Golf thinks. I honestly haven't thought about the cut line too much, so we'll start there, then I'll give you my thoughts. They have it at like +6, maybe even +7. I actually think conditions tomorrow are going to be harder than what you had for today. Pin locations could be trickier. We'll have to see what they do with the setup, but it's going to get firmer and faster before that rain comes through in the afternoon. Yeah, maybe +6, +7, man. It's a tough golf course for sure. You said the leaderboard's going to get turned upside down. You wouldn't be too bad about round 1 for sure, man. And like those guys that are +4, +5, I mean, you should even par. You're making the cut there. And there are going to be guys at +1, +2 that played pretty well today. They're going to shoot +5, +6 tomorrow and miss the cut. So, right, just because somebody played well today, right, we can't get too excited about it. And also, you probably don't want to get too down about the guys that didn't play well, like you were saying, for the exact same reason. See, top 4 ball striking guys all lost strokes putting. I noticed that myself too. A lot of really good players couldn't figure out the greens today. Not a lot of guys in general that were gaining strokes putting. He said, thanks for the call on yesterday's show. I appreciate that, Garth. I will say, though, that it wasn't really a call, right? It was just an observation of me noticing him playing well in the course. A few of them ended up working out. Like a few of the guys I noticed that were grinding didn't end up playing that well. But it's going to go right sometimes. It's going to go wrong sometimes with that on-course analysis. So, hey, I appreciate the shout out on it, but let's not go too overboard with it, right? Luddy is going to be chalky at +2. I wouldn't say so, man. What's going on? Susumu says, hey, Luke, how was my round 1? Fantastic. A little hot out there, but we can take it as a Florida boy. And he said, hoping things are steady with my heavy exposure plays. They're doing all right. I mean, Lowry, probably not the best, but we're doing okay otherwise. So we'll see after tomorrow. If Lowry can sneak through the cut line, I feel pretty good about it. Is Brooks winning this? Man, that'd be good to see. I have an 80-1 ticket on him to win this event. So my wallet sure hopes he can pull the thing off. A lot of golf to go, though. He could blow up just like anyone else out there. A hell of a Thursday. For sure, man. Can't complain out there. The 90-1 ticket, dude, that's crazy. I got 80-1 here on Rivers, but 90-1 even better. So good stuff. Let's just get rid of that guy. I'm not even going to give him the time of the day. Can Spawn keep the momentum going? Does he have a history of showing up at majors? He doesn't have a history of showing up at majors. In fact, before this point, he really doesn't have any top finishes to speak of. So can he keep it going? There's always the or he could. I mean, these guys are world-class players, especially Spawn, who showed up at the Players' Championship this year. A few other signature events has been in the mix. He could always kind of surprise us and end up finishing in that top 5 at the end of the week. But I would say like him, Thurston, Lawrence, a lot of those unknown commodities, I wouldn't count on it, man. How do I feel about Scotty? Did dip in price? Yeah, man, from the price angle, he's going to be a lot more affordable. I think the ownership is going to be about the same, if not a little bit lower than what he was for main slate. So I don't want to steam him up, though. I was kind of hoping not to have to give my full thoughts on him because, you know, if I say I like him, it might impact the ownership by 1-2%, that kind of thing. But yeah, you know, I'm always going to be transparent. I'm always going to be a pretty open book when it comes to my thoughts on these players. He's obviously a good bounce back candidate. I mean, he's world number 1. He's the best player that we have in this field. And it's only an 18-hole sample size that we've seen so far. We don't want to completely cross guys off because of how they played in round number 1. And if that's going to lower their ownership, which on guys that kind of struggled today, you are going to see slightly lower ownership numbers. That could actually be advantageous if you use it the right way. Did Spawn figure out how to putt? Dude, he gained a bunch of strokes putting today. You said he always took him as like a Florida guy. Yeah, me too. I mean, he played that well, you know, during that stretch this year. Hasn't really played well otherwise. It wasn't just the putting today, though. He did gain across all 4 stat categories, but 4 strokes gained putting. He had like 3 putts from over 15 feet that he was making for par. That is going to be really tough to back up. So I would have to think he comes back to the field a bit. Thoughts on the course? So good, I guess a good point to kind of reiterate it. I didn't see anything today that surprised me. It was kind of the same thing yesterday too. I mean, I've been on this property a few times before. It was when I was a lot younger that I was here. There were a lot more trees when I was here when I was a younger child. But yeah, it's traditional Oakmont, man. It's really hard. Played a little bit harder today than actually what I was expecting. So just more around the green stats, I would say. Like around the green really matters around here, not just for saving pars, but on holes 2 and 17 that are those drivable par 4s, they are a chance to get up and down for birdie there too. So you might want to keep an eye on that. You said keep going to the SEP score. He doubled the last shoot +8. And the thing is, Ross, I know you probably saw that comment too. So that's why you're giving me this firepower here. Dude, cheers to that. And he ended up at +8. And we got to scroll the whole way down to find him here, huh? At T124. That's none of my business, though, huh? Sipping on those SEP tiers. I gotta say, I love SEP. I bet him. I've hit an outright this year. I've made a lot of money on them, but you got to stick it to him a little bit, huh? He said, late to the stream. Hope I'm enjoying the tournament. I am. I appreciate the kind words there, too. Have we talked about Adam Scott or Carlos Ortiz yet? We have not. So he came in at a good time, and we can definitely do a little stat deep dive for him. Adam Scott, really good ball striking stats. Saw him drive 17 on the broadcast earlier, so that was pretty cool for Adam. And very surprisingly, his iron play has not been good this year. He gained 2.5 strokes with the irons today. So I got to say, he sets up pretty well for tomorrow. Then let's also look at Carlos Ortiz. I mean, going to be a little bit lower owned than he should be just because he's from the Live Tour. And tee to green was a monster. He gained 7.5 strokes tee to green. Ball striking wise, gained over 5.6 strokes in those 2 categories, and then lost 4 at the putter, or almost 4 in that category. Great bounce back spot. And there's, by the way, there's a lot of guys that are fitting this stat profile. Part of that, by the way, just kind of want to throw this PSA out there. These shots gain metrics are going to look a little wonky. It's going to be a little bit easier to gain strokes to the field because of some of the amateurs, the guys that aren't full-time tour pros, past champions that are playing on some of their last years of their exemption. That does have an impact on these averages and hence the shots gained metrics too. But if you're gaining strokes in all those categories, then you're losing a bunch of putting, you kind of get the idea, right? Like maybe you want to like half all of them and kind of look at it that way, but it's still going to help you out with finding this stuff. You said you got some 3-ball parlays up, so not a bad day. Yeah, me too, man. It was a okay prop day. I'm betting a lot of straights this week, unlike like pick'em sites. Normally I'm on like Prize Picks Underdog. This week it's a lot of straights, so I'm with you, man. Hopefully tomorrow can be even better. I'd like to hit a little parlay or two. I was mostly doing straights. Maybe we'll make it like a 2-3 legger that we can play. He said also, what's my opinion on a Bryson outright? Plus 1,800. So he's starting way far back. Winning score, though. So after today, I also want to give my winning score prediction a little bit of an update. If it rains, I think it's going to be around -4, just like you had with DJ that wins this. If it doesn't rain tomorrow night, I think it could be even par or worse. So over par is in play if we don't end up getting a big rainstorm tomorrow afternoon. Now, all the forecasts are calling for that storm, so it's wishful thinking to say the least that I'm mentioning that. But Bryson outright, to get back to your question, because it was important with that, he's got a chance if it's a really hard weekend. I mean, even at that kind of score being a few over par, 3-4 over, he shoots even par tomorrow, he could be in the top 10. I'm okay with that. I don't think the odds are great, like the plus 1,800. I don't think that's value, but there is definitely still a chance for those kind of guys to win this event. Is even or worse plus ball striking or short game regression a good start for round 2 strategy? So you're saying you're looking for guys that were even or worse, so like maybe leverage plays because they're going to be over par, and then you're looking for the ball striking and short game regression. I'm okay with that. I don't think you have to go AM only, though, so that part of what you said there, I wouldn't necessarily agree with. I don't see a massive weather edge for round number 2, but I like the leverage aspect of finding the guys that are even or worse. The ball striking aspect is obviously important too, so I'm okay with it. Sanjay, can he put 4 rounds together? I hope so, man. He's one of my more leveraged plays that we have on the slate, so I would certainly like to see that in my portfolio. As a tiebreaker, would I take off the tee better or guys that are on approach? Approach for sure. Approach is always my go-to. It's the most consistent stat. We say ball striking is always important, but approach is definitely more important than when it comes to the off the tee. But yeah, that's the way I would lean on that. Is it up here late too? Too much wood or ice in South Philly? I don't know what wood or ice is, man. You guys in Philly with your lingo. Some of it I know because, I went to school up here in Pitt. I had some friends from Philly. That's a new one for me, though, man. You're going to have to let me know. Possible rebounds from Akshay and Cantlay. You said they're the only shaky legs that you've got. Let's see. So Akshay. Akshay's got a 5.5, maybe a 6 out of 10 stat profile. As I previously mentioned, approach play is the most important stat category. So that's why I still have him as a slightly above average play, even though he's losing in the other 3 categories, is because his 1 category gaining is with the iron play, but he's got to figure out these other 3 stat categories. Right? He can't lose 2 strokes off the tee every round. Probably going to need a pop round putting to try and get towards the top 2. And the other one was Cantlay too, right? Cantlay, really popular play of this week, which I ended up playing myself too. I kind of feel like an idiot because I knew the ownership was going to be there, and I honestly didn't think he was the best play. I played him. I don't want to say it was FOMO, but he's the kind of guy that randomly shows up. So anytime I get to a golf course where I need to find somebody in that range to play, sometimes I just like throw in Patrick Cantlay. Definitely regretting that one a little bit. And this shots gained profile is like a 3 out of 10. I mean, he's hardly into the positive on approach, lost off the tee, maybe a 4.5 out of 10 would be a little bit more fair. They can definitely turn it around. They were popular for a reason. Both are playing decent, reasonable golf heading into this event. But the stat profile today, especially for Cantlay, is a little bit ugly. So it's not ugly enough to think that he doesn't have a chance, though. Did I say Rose having a bounce back, or do I see him? If memory serves you right, he's been bouncing back to make the cut a few times. He has, and especially in majors and signature events. Stat profile-wise, it's also feasible too, because he lost over 4 strokes on the greens and then was a gainer from tee to green. Yeah, I actually like that a lot. I didn't think about that before you said that, Ryan, but you're absolutely right with it. Have I looked into Ryan Fox? We have not, but definitely a good shout. Let's take a look at his shots gained. A little short game dependent for my liking. So 1.5 strokes gained to putting, almost 2 strokes around the green. Not to say that he's a complete cross off. It is a player with some of the best form of anyone in the field, but this kind of stat profile where, the short game categories, by the way, which we're about to go through the leaders in these categories here in just a minute. These short game categories, the reason why it's a red flag when you're gaining 3-4 shots gained there is that it's hard to keep that up from day to day. Putting, you're chipping, a lot of that comes down to luck. Your lies around the green, a lot of that is involved with around the green stats. But even when you're putting on perfect greens, which you have at Oakmont, they're some of the best greens of the world, there are imperfections that are out of your control that a lot of times can have drastic impacts on how many putts that you end up pulling. So Ryan Fox gaining these many strokes around the green and putting screams unsustainability because he's not a short game dependent player. He's more of a ball striking first player. And that part of his game today was into the negative between his off the tee and on approach. So tough scene for me, man. You can't cross him off, but that stat profile is definitely sub-ideal. He said the data golf guys are saying the shots gained data is also going to be a little bit weird. I agree with that, man. They're only doing their best to give us those stats. And like I said before with like the amateurs and stuff, that's going to throw it off a little bit too. So I still think round 2 historical. I still think high upside players or course history players are a really important part of your process. Like the shots gained metrics should definitely not be your end all be all. That's for sure. Was the rough as tough as it looked on the screen? He said some of the lies were horrendous. Kind of depends on what lie you were getting into. If you were getting into the trampled down stuff where the fans were, it wasn't bad whatsoever. But if you were getting into the stuff that was, cut, that was actually fluffed up like they wanted to, that stuff was absolutely brutal. So yeah, the normal rough is as hard as it looks on TV for sure. How do Rory's stats look? It's a good question. So he looked great early, and his second 9, I mean, I was actually in the car on the way to the golf course when this little stretch happened to the +4 or 5 towards the end. He gained off the tee. He did lose strokes on approach overall, but this stat profile is like a 5.5, a 6 out of 10. The off the tee play is a huge positive. I mean, that's been the real problem for Rory over the last few months, and approach play has been a bright spot for him over his last 24 rounds. So 5.5 stat profile, but I actually think it's even more favorable than that because the off the tee play was really the missing part of his game. Cantlay was under 10% in the daily dollar, which in hindsight is shocking. Wow. Yeah. So that contest, people must just have not wanted to play catcher Cantlay. He was a lot higher owned elsewhere, though. So it does make me kind of wonder why that was the case in that specific contest. We don't play Donkey Chalk unless we do. That is damn right, AJ. Shout out to DJN, by the way. The live stream last night, the celebration stream, I don't know if you guys were able to catch that, was absolutely epic. It was real touching if you guys were able to catch that. I had to watch it on a replay because I was doing content myself during it and wasn't able to be there live. But everyone that talked, by the way, I know Shaloub's in chat right now. Just want to say thank you guys for giving your thoughts on that. And I know that they're going to post the video on YouTube for us to watch in the future. And that's going to be great to have. So I appreciate everyone that gave their time to that and everyone, of course, that gave their thoughts too. Neiman can't compete with the real golfers on a real course. Yeah, at least today's round kind of backs it up. And his only top 10 was at the Quail Hollow PGA Championship. So I think that the track record kind of backs it up for you, man. He said, thoughts on Burns? He got to -3 and then fell away his last 4 holes. I noticed that too. I was actually following Burns because I bet against him today on a little bet that I added on the golf course. It wasn't one of like my main exposure plays or anything, but I was walking around with my uncle actually and talking about Burnsy and threw in a bet. He fell apart towards the end, so ended up cashing out for me, but it was definitely sweaty. I mean, he started out -3. He was absolutely killing the golf course. He's a decent bounce back spot. His ownership's going to be a lot lower now that he had that little bit of a fall off. But do you know that the momentum isn't there? That is a negative. I normally look for players that are on the rise as opposed to players that are on the fall when it comes to their momentum. But it doesn't mean that they're a complete cross off either, right? It's just one data point that I use in that kind of process. Did I know that Spawn hold out 18 of his 19 putts inside 20 feet? Oh, geez Louise. You know what, man? Sometimes you make all the putts. I've had that happen before. Not going to happen again, though, man. He's going to come down crashing down to earth. Can I remind you where I look for my round 2 historical? On the SHIPIT Nation Stone. So that's something that they actually publish for every single slate. So make sure to join SHIPIT Nation and check out the Stone for that. Smash the like button, as my guy David said. First off, appreciate you, David. Welcome on in. And let's get to it, guys. You heard the guy down there. He said, Luke, who is my or he could list? So there's not really a list, Aaron. So to answer your question, I don't really have anyone that comes to mind as like my or he could, but realistically, anyone that's a decent player. So decent player, I'll say 7K and above, like decent talent level player that played bad today could turn it around tomorrow. Every single one of them could turn it around tomorrow. Now, are all of them going to? Heck no. There's probably only like 3 or 4 of them that are going to have a really good day after having a struggle today. But the thing that's really good about those players and why it's worthy of mixing in a whole bunch of those guys into your player pool is that if they go off, they're going to be essentially unowned and you're going to have all the leverage in the world that you want. So yeah, not really the answer you might be looking for, but truthfully, really anyone could be an or he could candidate and no one really comes to mind. You said after round 1, you're regretting betting on Brooks. You know it's round 1, but he looks like he wants it. You say you're regretting not betting on Brooks, I'm guessing, is what you're saying. And yeah, I'm glad that I added it, man. I only added it because he had the 80-1 on Rivers Sportsbook, but Yeah, you were on the live stream yesterday on the prop stream, so I mean, you know my thoughts on it. I just thought it was disrespectful. I thought it was just a number that can't be hung on a player that's a major championship like that, a 5-time major champion like Brooks Koepka. And hey, if he cashes it out, they're going to make the sportsbook pay for that kind of mistake. Let's look at Hideki for you. So Hideki gained on approach. Short game was a little bit hit or miss. It's a 5 out of 10 stat profile because though he gained on approach, he did lose strokes off the tee. Maybe it's a 5.5 out of 10 because at least he did gain with the shots gained approach. Stat profile, though, doesn't tell us that much, I would say. You saw every minute of the DGens tribute vid. That was my favorite part about it, by the way. I was able to watch it on replay, and whoever ended up putting that together, I think it was the editor that did. A special shout out to you, man. Like, I know everyone joining in the live stream, I gave the shout out to you before, but especially the editor. That was a really good piece. How am I feeling about Bobby Mack? I'm worried about the ownership a bit just because he had a good round today. And I played him for main slate at a little bit lower ownership. And when I see that his best stat category was him gaining 2.5 strokes with the putter, it is a little bit off-putting for me. So I'm I'd say a 4 out of 10 on him, man. Just the ownership kind of scares me off of it, especially with a stat profile that is slightly sub-ideal. What would I look for in round 2 on DGen's notes? So look for round 2 scorers. At least to my knowledge, he has a lot of those players in there as decent round 2 scorers. You see it for like round 3 and 4 as well. Also, high upside players. So guys that will make a whole lot of birdies. Sometimes we'll see that like this specific player is good for Showdown. I would look at that kind of stuff, David. That would be, at least for the Showdown format, the best, most pertinent and actionable info. Tambo and Hoop, absolutely. Shout out to them too for running the live stream. You know, can't shout out the guests and not the hosts themselves too. Shout out to Tyler and Hoop out there too. The guy in the back has the list. The guy in the back, shout out to James on that. He said, speaking of Bobby Mack, going 12 for 12 on fairways is insanely impressive. There's 14. So did he go 14 for 14, Swish? You can actually just bring up the driving accuracy and we can check it right here. So yeah, I guess he went 11 for 14 fairways is where Data Golf has it. Maybe it's slightly different on the US Open website. Impressive either way. Same thing with Velo. Velo also hit a whole bunch of fairways. Hard to do around a golf course this tight. But what we're going to do next, before we go through any other player deep dives that you have at the end of the live stream, are the leaders in some of these categories. So I know I had this sorted by the ball striking stats before. What I want to show you, though, are a few players that kind of stand out. These top 4 lost on the putter. We had Brian mention that before. All of these guys are usable for tomorrow, but they're going to be significantly higher owned than some guys a little bit further down the list. And even furthermore, players like Rasmus Niergaard Peterson, also Thomas Dietrich that broke par today, that combined with really good shots gained to ball striking is going to make them even more popular than some of the other guys around them. So, for example, if we were to scroll down here and get to, like, I would say like James Nicklaus, maybe this Zach Poyo guy. I guess he's eating a whole bunch of chicken with that last name. But these two guys, like, they're random unknowns. Like, I'm not going to use them in Showdown, especially if I've never seen them before. And I'm super plugged in with golf. I mean, you guys know that. If I don't even know who the heck these guys are, then I'm just not going to use them. But the players that it makes a lot more sense with, Lawrence is going to be a little bit chalkier than we want because he's in that top 3. But like an Aaron Rye, like, starts to really catch my eye because his ball striking today, he gained, 2.5 strokes in the category, +2. So he's not going to be that popular, and he wasn't short game dependent. Like, that's the kind of play that I could see myself using. A Jacob Bridgman, normally one of the best putters on tour, also shot +2. His ball striking was balanced, about 2.5 strokes gained in those two categories. Like, he could be a player that I use these shots gained metrics for. So it's not just that the shots gained metrics, right, are like just a guideline to going out there and binking every single slate. You've also got to consider the ownership angle and the kind of steam that these players are going to be getting because of their standings on these exact kind of stats. Because, you know, you would be kind of silly to think that you're the only ones that are researching these players after every single round. And the exact opposite is true as well. So if we take a look at these guys that gained a whole bunch around the green or with the putter, these are players that I hold it against a little bit. So an Eduardo Molinari, Francesco Molinari's brother, right? You wouldn't expect him to gain 4 strokes putting every single round. We already mentioned the Spawn one, Thurston Lawrence. Definitely going to come back down to earth at some point. It's unfortunate as a fan, but yeah, I wouldn't expect him to finish top 5 by the end of the week. And a lot of these guys, whether it's the putter or these around the green stats where they were gaining over 2-3 shots gained to the field, it's not an automatic cross-off spot, but if they're players that are grading out really well with the short game and they're chalky, then those are automatic cross-off spots for me. And you can also take a look at the guys that lost a whole bunch of strokes in these categories. It's not like losing strokes itself is a good thing, but like Shane Lowry, we pointed this one out a little bit earlier. If you were okay ball striking, he was at least positive in those two categories and then lost over 5.5 strokes in the short game categories, like then it's a good thing because he was hitting the ball okay today, at least reasonably well. The approach play, by the way, is a little bit thrown off by his hole-out eagle, so his approach play was a little bit worse than this number that we're seeing right there, but there's little to no chance that he's going to struggle that much on and around the greens again. So another player that stands out in Ortiz, we went through his stat profile when we were here on Data Golf. Victor Hovland, also, he lost 3 strokes putting, but was really good with the shots gained ball striking. Those are the kind of bounce back candidates that I look for and call short game regression candidates. So these guys that lost strokes short game but were decent elsewhere, those are, you know, some of the guys I use in my player pool. The guys that are towards the top end of the ball striking list, also players that I get to. I mentioned the high upside players. Those are guys that make a whole lot of birdies. And then the course history players. Those are the 4 things that I'll be looking for in my player pool for tomorrow. So we've got the weather taken care of. We talked a little bit about ownership to this point as well. Of course, guys, over there on the SHIPIT Nation site, they're going to have ownership posted a little bit later on tonight as well. And of course, on my Patreon page too. So if you aren't already a part of the SHIPIT Nation site or my Patreon page for the projections, make sure to check on all of that out because, you know, these shots gained metrics, they're just one part of the puzzle. We also have to consider how steamed and how much ownership those players are going to be getting at the same time. After we go through any last-second questions that you've got, we're going to wrap this off by building a few lineups together. So let's see if there's any player deep dives to go through, and then round this thing off. Let's see. You took that from Data Golf's live blog after the morning was over? Yeah, so it didn't go 12 for 12. There's a 14 around there for sure. And yeah, I'm not going to talk crap about DG because they do a lot of good work, but everyone makes mistakes. So, you know, they're not excluded from that, we'd have to say. Jordan, almost impressive. I love how Jordan played today, man. It was kind of classic Jordan Spieth, gaining 3.5 strokes around the green. Let's hope he can continue that, man, because this is a really good course fit for him. Let's go Ben Ann, deep dive. He said 1 through 10 on him. So 2 out of 10. And you maybe didn't want to hear that, but it's true. He gained over 2.4 strokes in the short game categories and then lost nearly 2 strokes ball striking. At least stat profile wise, it's like a 3.5 out of 10. Ownership wise, though, because he's +4, it's an 8 or a 9 out of 10 because no one's going to want to use him at that sort of number. He is a high birdie percentage player. So if you're looking for guys that are more aggressive, that do have that high birdie or better percentage, he's going to check that kind of box. And you know, if there's a spot to take a low-owned player, it's one that's extremely aggressive like Benny Ann. So, yeah, stat profile wouldn't be the reason for playing him, but there are definitely reasons why you could throw him into your player pool. He said, with the afternoon playing easier, am I hesitant on betting props for the morning players, or does the talent outweigh that? I'm not quite sure yet, man. I'd have to see like where the prop boards are. I'm assuming that they might actually favor the PM guys a little bit. Usually they take the data from round 1 and they adjust for it. I would say if they adjust for it and the AM guys are a little bit higher on strokes or maybe a little bit lower with their birdie lines, then it wouldn't really impact my process all that much. But we are going to have to see what they do with the pricing before I guess I give you my full thoughts, because that's probably the biggest factor when it comes to that. Gim deep dive. Ooh, Gim didn't have the best day, huh? At least from what I remember. Yeah, +9. He lost 4 strokes putting. He did gain 2.6 strokes with the approach play. Off the tee play has to get better. You can't lose 4 strokes putting either. That's just a no-go if you're going to try and shoot something that's super low. We'll say 5.5, 6 out of 10 stat profile, because once again, the iron play is the most important part of the stat profile, but the rest of it is real ugly around that kind of a stat. When do I think I'll drop that sweet showdown sheet? Probably like an hour or so from now. I've still got to do all the projections, so can't give you an exact time, but they are posted before pretty much everyone else in the industry posts. I'm first to market almost every single time, so you can definitely expect them up in a pretty good prompt fashion, we would say. He said, thanks, of course, for still working while traveling. It's fun, man. Hey, this is technically work, we'll put in quotes, but it's a whole lot of fun out here too, so I'm not going to complain about it. Hey, Luke, Mackenzie Hughes deep dive, for sure. I got you, man. So Hughes gained 2.4 strokes approach and then actually lost strokes putting. This has been a regular for him, though, lately. So just to kind of show you guys the stat profile on Hughes, putter's been a problem over the last 4 events. Charles Schwab, he's a little bit better. He did gain 0.83 shots gained putting. But, and it's a massive but, if we go back before that, look at all the green that he has on that shots gained putting category. So I would say that he's got a bounce back potential, maybe not like as bona fide or as strong as some of the other ones, but definitely has that within him. Do I think that Rory will ever speak to the media again? For sure. He's just on his time of the month right now, right? He's kind of feeling himself and I guess doesn't want to put himself out there. Oh, well, you're entitled to do what you want, I guess, right? All the power to Rory. Do I still use shots gained for the last 12 and 24 rounds for round 2 and 3? For sure, Brian. A lot of that is incorporated into my projections, though. Form is a really important aspect with how I project guys for rounds 2 and 3. So, yeah, it's a part of the process. Not as big a part of my process for building a player pool, though, as what I do for main slate. So hopefully that answers your question there. He said, watch him play tomorrow. You're talking about Rory, I guess. Yeah, I would like to see him talk to the media, even if he plays bad and misses the cut. Chris says, sorry if I already discussed this, but how was the day? Great. So, yeah, I guess you're just joining us, but yeah, it was a great day out there. I appreciate you guys all checking in on how it went. But it was really hot. Only real complaint I can give. And I followed a bunch of different groups. Scotty was the main one that I followed, but it was an absolute clusterfuck, no other way to really put it. I hate to use swear words a lot of times, but it's true. It's a clusterfuck. No other word really puts it into justice. Going over the bridge, if you guys are familiar with Oakmont, even if you're not, there is a highway that goes through the middle of the golf course. So there's only one bridge you can take from going one side to the other. I made the mistake of following Scotty Scheffler's group and trying to go over the bridge. It took me an hour of waiting to get over that bridge. So I guess I'm just trying to find things to complain about at this point, because outside of that, man, it was a beautiful day. No complaints. It's a lot of fun up here. And like I said, you got to try to find the things to complain about at this point. It's a great week for sure. He said Rory's is moving after the tournament. You guys are absolutely brutal on my guy, Rory, but we'll see what he does the rest of this event. He said, do I think the PM plays easier tomorrow? I'm thinking there's a chance it does, Brandon, but I would not count on it. So that was my official take that I gave a little bit earlier in the live stream. Is it played easier today? You'd have to think that, if you were just taking a guess, that it would probably play easier again. But I just, based on what I saw today, like the PM was a little bit windier and it was firmer and faster. I think it was actually the players in the PM just being better players. I might be wrong about that. It's really, really hard to kind of know that. It's almost impossible to quantify it. But I think that could be the reason for it. So I'm not all in on the PM guys. What's going on? Os the Boss, my guy. Welcome on in. I love to see you on these live streams at times. And he said, Luke, which hole would I be the most afraid to play? So let's go off today's setup. So you said on what I saw today. Good thing to add there, because the pin locations really do matter. I actually think that 8's fine. 8's not that hard. I would have no problem parring 8. That's a 280-yard par 3, by the way. Reason I say that is it fits my shot shape. 280 is my driver. I could just hit a driver, and I'm pretty accurate with it. So I actually don't have that many problems there. Probably 2. The pin location at 2, man, I actually didn't think it was going to be that bad before the round started until we actually saw people playing it. That was unbelievably difficult. If you spun a wedge back, you had any spin on it, you spun off the front of the green and you had a 40-yard chip. So that was nightmare fuel, man. That they're going to be a lot more pins like that, by the way, over the next few days. And then he said Seabez or Matt Wallace. It's like choosing between 2 sushi places that are going to make you shit your pants, huh? Not necessarily 2 guys that I really like. Wallace, pretty balanced stat profile. And then who was the other one that you had there? It was Seabez. And if you can't tell, there's not a really big chance I'm going to be playing either of those 2. Similar stat profiles, but Seabez, let's see, 1.8 strokes on approach. Let's look at Wallace. Yeah, I'd go Seabez. Seabez had a slightly better iron day. So if I'm going to choose between those 2, I would side in that direction. Cut line prediction +6 for me, Brian, maybe even +7. And let's go through a Grazerman deep dive. So good old Max Grazerman. Lost putting. That's surprising. He's one of the best putters that we have on the PGA Tour. Ball striking, though, also left a lot to be desired. So 4.5, 4 out of 10 on a Max Grazerman stat profile, but overall at +6, no ownership. So you'd have to say the ownership angle is like a 9 out of 10. You're going to get a bunch of leverage if you throw them into your lineups. But yeah, the stat profiles is a problem, right? It's a red flag for a reason, and that is why he's going to be lower owned. People aren't going to be as comfortable getting there. He said, make sure I'm drinking water. I for sure am, man. Got the water right here. And what I've been doing is I've had a couple adult beverages on the golf course so far this week, but every two that I've had, which is really only the practice round where I had a couple of them, it's every two, then you get a water in. And yeah, I'm from South Florida, so I'm well versed on that kind of stuff. But hey, I appreciate you looking out for me though, man. It's we got to be used to it in Florida, though. The 95-degree heat, if you don't have a game plan for the hydration, you're going to get heat stroke every single time. It's just something that we kind of learn. And then, yeah, let's look at Jon Rahm. He obviously had a really good day. Ball striking was elite, over almost six strokes, I should say, between those two categories. It's a 7.5, 8, actually probably an 8.5 out of 10 stat profile. It's going to be pretty hard to beat that. Short game also wasn't carrying him. The issue with Rahm, though, and we do have to add that, is right, the stat profile might be an 8, 8.5 out of 10, but the ownership angle's got to be a 2 because he's towards the top. He's probably going to be over 20% ownership. Haven't ran my projections quite yet, but I have to imagine he's going to be sniffing 25% projected ownership. I mean, 25% is tough to get leverage on. So his stat profile is great. I loved him heading into this event. He very well might make my player pool for tomorrow. But if you're using Jon Rahm, just keep in mind that you're going to have to get different elsewhere. It's just not going to be as low into some of the other guys around him. And then he said probability that Sep goes nuclear. There's always the or he could, especially with an elite tier form guy. Look at that. I was typing nuclear in the chat. So maybe he is going to end up pulling that off. But Sepp Straka lost the 2 strokes putting and then was pedestrian in the other 3 categories. Yeah, he could pull it off, especially a guy like Sepp that's been one of the best players in 2025. I kind of hope he doesn't, though, just because I faded him for main slate, but he's definitely got it in him. And he said Prize Picks and Underdogs still haven't posted yet. Yeah, they usually like to wait until after the round ends, and then they've got to put together their boards. Give it another 30 minutes or so, man, and then I think we'll have those to go through. Let's talk through the strategy for tomorrow. So in terms of the contests that are available, pretty sweet for these major championships. They're bigger contests than what we typically have for like rounds 2 and 3 for a regular event. So for example, the Sand Trap is $250K in terms of total prizes. And that's still top heavy. It's a fifth of first place, which actually isn't the worst payout structure that you could possibly have here, but the total prizes are a lot more favorable than what we typically have. So you're going to have the large field GPPs to attack. I think the payout structures are pretty decent too. Like this one is an eighth of first place, so there's a really good chance that I'm going to 150 max this kind of a contest. In fact, I'll tell you right now, I am going to 150 max this kind of contest for tomorrow. But a lot of you guys watching this that aren't entering 150 lineups, there might be some of you that are, right? That's why we talk through a lot of that 150 max strategy. But if you're more of the typical PGA DFS player that's only entering a handful of lineups, maybe only one lineup per slate, a lot of you guys out there are probably doing that. Consider single entries. So rather than going and entering like the $25 Sand Trap or maybe like a $100 contest that has multi-entries, look at these long drives. They're $100 single entries where you're only going to enter against people that can only enter one lineup themselves, which means that you're not entering against sharps like myself that can enter 150 lineups against you in the Sand Trap or against you in that Drive the Green $5 GBP that I was mentioning before. These contests protect you from those sort of players, and they give you flatter payout structures when it comes to your top 5, top 10. So even if you don't end up taking down first and having the absolute nuts, if you end up getting, let's say, third place in this contest, you get a nice $2,000 payout there. So it's not just the long drives that make sense, but also like the $33 single entries, the $12 single entries that they have available. Like this is the dog leg here. This is the $33 one that I was mentioning. This is 10% to first. So as flat as a payout structure as you're possibly going to find, which I would say are the best contests that you can find on DraftKings. This one right here is also 10% to first. It's the $12 Albatross that they have for round number 2. If you're newer to the space, only entering one lineup for tomorrow, maybe it's the $12, maybe it's the $33. Maybe you reserve both contests and you throw one lineup into the both of them. I'd prefer that. Or are you taking your contests and your talents into that $5 or $25 GBP? So if you're watching this, just a little bit of a PSA when it comes to the contests that you're playing. And there's a real big reason for that. And we're not going to do the full spiel here. We've done it 1,000 times on the channel before. But sure, it looks nice to win 50K. That's why a lot of people, when they play DraftKings, will enter the Sand Trap or that Drive the Green, where it's $5,000 to first place for just that $5 entry. But you're entering against 12,000 entries. The Drive the Green has I guess like 7,000 to 8,000 entries with that kind of a prize pool, it is really tough to take that down, especially when you have people in it with 150 lineups. Whereas, let's just show this the big long drive, for example. So this is a bigger single entry that they have on the board. There's only 334 people that you're playing against, 333 other people that you have to beat to finish in first place. That is a lot more doable, and especially the top 3, top 5, right? That's a lot more doable than in those large field GPPs, and you're going to get a much more respectable payout than in some of those other contests. And just to kind of hammer this home, let's go to that big sand trap, which, by the way, this payout structure isn't even that bad. But like, let's look at like fourth place. It's $7,500. Like, sure, that looks really good, but to finish top 5 in this contest as opposed to another one, it's going to be much, much more difficult. And let's say you are 150 maxing this. I mean, it's going to cost thousands of dollars to go out there and do so. So that's why the single entries make a little bit more sense, and to keep you away from some of the sharks with 150 lineups. In terms of what you should be thinking about when putting together your builds, it mostly comes down to getting enough leverage into your lineups. And that's not to say that you have to have a leverage piece or somebody that's average to below average ownership at all 6 spots. It's not who you play, it's how you play them. But for 3, 4 of your spots in all of your lineups, especially in those large field GPPs, you should be trying to get some sort of differentiation. So I'm going to throw in a Scotty Scheffler who is not going to give me that differentiation. He's going to be one of the more popular players that I'm mixing in, which is totally fine. Like I said, you have plenty of other spots where you can get different to the field. But in this 8K range, like Hideki, if you like him for a bounce back, like he's going to be low owned at that portion of the board. If you threw in a Harris English, who by the way was pretty chalky heading into this week, but after shooting +3 and being T55 is probably not going to be as popular as a lot of the other guys around them. You know, these are the sort of players that I'm using for bounce backs. Obviously, the shots gained metrics, building a player pool really makes your job easy when you're clicking in names here. I haven't built my player pool quite yet, so I don't have an exact idea of where my exposure is going to come in. But when I'm building my lineups, it's just simply making sure that I have enough leverage involved. So just to kind of hammer this home, let's throw in a chalkier Bud Cauley, I guess, and then let's throw in another chalky guy. Let's see. Not a whole bunch of chalk towards the bottom, but let's throw in a Rasmus Njergaard Peterson, who I guess is going to be a little bit chalkier than some of the other guys around him. So we've got 2 guys in the top 10, Scheffler, who's also going to be getting some ownership. In this kind of lineup, you're being probably a little bit too chalky, especially for like the $5 or $25 GPP. But if you wanted to get away with it and offset that kind of ownership, just take somebody that's sub 1% owned as your last minute. Maybe leave $200 on the table and add in some extra differentiation. It's not who you play, it's how you play them. It depends on the guys that you're using around those players in your lineups, but also the lineup construction itself. Leaving salary on the table is another way to get extra differentiation. Or, of course, you can consider just taking players that are like sub 1% owned, getting like super leverage pieces into that kind of lineup. It's not rocket science. You can still have some ownership in spots. And by the way, just because they mixed in a few of those top 10 guys towards the bottom doesn't mean that you have to. In fact, if you like guys towards the bottom that are lower owned, you should be taking those pivots as much as you possibly can. So that's all I've got for the lineup construction segment. That is all we've got out here for the round 2 live stream. Best of luck with all the exposure that you guys are getting to. I've got to go ahead, get some dinner in my belly, and then do the prop and betting live stream a little bit later on tonight. So for that, of course, guys, make sure to check out my YouTube channel. Not exactly sure on the exact start time. Probably going to be like 10 p.m. Eastern time, I'd guess. Give or take like maybe a half an hour to 10:30, that sort of thing. Where we're going through all the stuff on like Underdog and Prize Picks, sports books with strokes props, birdie props, bogey props, all of that kind of stuff, as well as matchups with 3 balls on all the different sports books as well. So if you're somebody that doesn't just play fantasy, but also, you know, bets on all these given rounds, likes to break down pin locations, stat averages from one day heading into the next, make sure to check out that live stream as well, which we're still doing on the road. Like I said, a lot of content that we're doing, but can't complain, man. It's we're at the US Open. This is the dream week up here in Pittsburgh, and we're gonna keep you guys covered for all that content heading forward. But that's all I've got, guys. Gonna go ahead and cut it off here. Like I said, I got a lot to get to tonight, but best of luck, and I'll see you guys for some of the content throughout the rest of the week.